I've gone for coffee today.
Randy, have you got a whiskey?
Always.
In my official SPR mug, I have a beverage.
Have a beverage.
We will just leave it at that.
Yeah. Sorry. Something keeps on scratching the back of my chair and moving. I'm really freaked out.
We
I
were
keep
talking about the
looking.
trickster watcher phenomena.
Well, yeah, this
I've
fits right into this discussion, especially with
been
the
doing it. Have you seen
non-contact
me?
contagion. We're talking about this stuff, and then
I've been looking because I keep hearing a scratching
I saw
on
you
the wood.
looking. Yeah.
Three times I've looked, and that was really loud. It was like right on the back of the chair.
Please do take the moment to click the like button in the corner. It really does help us to grow. It allows us to show the platform the mysterious algorithm that appears to encompass all things, that we are growing and we are flourishing. Of course, as we are new, we need to let it know that we are an important place where fantastic discussions and amazing insights are happening. And this is where we require your assistance. You can press the subscribe and the follow button on your platform of choice. We're dropping fresh content each and every week throughout Season 1, and Season 2 is about to get underway, bringing powerful conversations and meaningful insights. Follow us on the platforms that you like the most. Your support does mean the world to us. Now, I think that's enough of me trying to sell what it is we're talking about. Let's go on with today's episode. All right, let's dive in.
Welcome to the Unearthly Bureau. My name is Caroline McKendrick Gibson. This is a podcast where we touch on hot topics in anomalous phenomena and the 14. We want to dive deep down rabbit holes and ask those unanswered questions. So come along with us and join us tonight on the journey with Randy Liebeck on the large number of ghosts and poltergeist experiences that do not line up with surviving human consciousness or RSPK. I'm going to discuss that in a little bit more detail. So good evening to you, Randy.
good evening. Pleasure to be here with you.
How are you doing?
Doing good. Winter is almost over here. We had a couple of days when it was 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So I was out back with a cigar and enjoying the summertime. And then the next couple of days, it was 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So today it's in the 40s, so it's not too bad. But
Lovely.
I've had enough of snow. I've had enough of shivering. I'm waiting for spring needs to get here quick.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. It's been a very long, drawn-out winter. But thank you. We appreciate you joining us and brightening our day and bringing the sunshine to us here. So thank you very much for coming. Randy, for those people who don't know you, would you like to tell everybody how long you've been in the paranormal and your interests and a little bit about yourself?
Well, I have read and studied the paranormal since I first learned how to read. When I was learning how to read as a little kid at home, the stuff in the house that we had around was my grandmother's subscription to Fate magazine, which is a US-based paranormal publication. So the first things I was reading was, UFOs, ghosts, and all that stuff. Then public library at 9 years old, I was checking out books by J.B. and Louisa Rhine, J.G. Pratt on parapsychology, and the librarian, telling me, "Oh, you're too young to check out these books. This isn't for you. The children's section is down there." Had to come back with my mother, who said, "Let him check out the books." So from ghost stories, then to parapsychology, the real science behind it. Again, at 8, 9 years old, I was studying this stuff. So I had a background in it, at least theoretical reading background. And then in the late 80s, back when I was a uniformed police officer, I actually went out on my first few field investigations, usually with the other cops because we had access to stuff. So, yeah, since the mid to late 80s, I've been doing the occasional field investigation. I'm not one of these people with a group and it goes out to, 100 different places every 6 months, and oh, I've investigated 5,000 cases. No, I've investigated a few dozen over all these decades. Usually, if I'm asked by an organization or a TV show or a university might reach out to me because somebody reached out to the university. Back in the day, I was on many Rolodexes where they go, okay, you have a ghost thing? Here, let's go spin through this. And this Randy guy, give him a call. So that's been my involvement. My primary interest is in spontaneous cases, poltergeist, hauntings, spontaneous PK effects. As I mentioned, I have a background in law enforcement, been a cop of some sort or other since 1985. Been a county constable. I've been a deputy sheriff, federal police officer. Currently, I work in threat management for the Department of Homeland Security, where we protect the homeland from terrorism, espionage, the wide range of things. And I have to fit in my paranormal stuff in between the working hours. So there have been I have newspaper clippings about me from back in the day. There's Randy Liebeck, cop by day, ghostbuster by night. So
wonderful. We have shared a few of these stories when we've been in each other's company and we've been chatting. But I'm going to ask you: are you happy to share a few of these stories if they hit on something that we discussed tonight? Are you happy to share those?
Oh, certainly. And on some of the topics we're going to discuss, I do have a couple of personal anecdotes that illustrate what I'm talking about with the very high strangeness reports of hauntings and poltergeists that, as you mentioned, don't really fit in with the current parapsychological paradigm. So maybe something else is going on in some of these cases.
Thank you. Well, maybe I should ask the first question then, seeing though you've touched on it. What made you first realize that a significant number of hauntings don't fit the usual human spirit or RSPK explanations?
It's been a growing little nagging thing in the back of my mind from early on. Reading stuff like in Fate magazine and the different books people write of their personal experiences of hauntings, and they are reporting things that happen and happen a lot. There's different patterns in what people experience in hauntings. But then when you read parapsychological literature, when you read the parapsychology books, and there's the chapter on hauntings, chapter on poltergeists, you take different classes, and I know and I work with academic parapsychologists, and their approach, God bless them, is that it's a haunting is either a residual recording in the environment that plays back at certain times. Okay, and I think most of those cases that look like a recording probably are, but if it's not a recording, then it's a surviving human consciousness. A dead person's consciousness is still lingering around doing things. And if you read a lot of these actual case reports of people who are experiencing this, it doesn't fit in with that. And you'll see in a parapsychology journal or a textbook that in a haunting, A, B, and C happens. Yeah, and it does. But they're completely ignoring the fact that D, E, and F also happen quite a bit, and it doesn't fit in with the paradigm. With poltergeist cases, the parapsychological model, which is universal in the field, is recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. It's a living person. They are subconsciously impacting the external environment and doing certain things because of repressed psychological issues or anger or a neurological pathological a malfunction in some cases, which seems to mimic epilepsy to a degree. And again, the parapsychology models, Bill Roll, who I knew and was the father of the poltergeist research, he said, well, in poltergeist cases, A, B, and C happens. Objects will, might fly off a shelf, and that's somebody who's angry subconsciously and in a fit of rage. Instead of actually picking up something and throwing it, their mind is throwing this book off the shelf. Yeah, okay, in some cases, but a lot of strange stuff happens in poltergeist cases. We've read and listened to Darren Ritson in his Contagion work. He's not the first person to notice that there's stuff that happens in poltergeist and haunting cases, which is way, way beyond, what we would think could be capable of a living person subconsciously impacting the environment. There are things that happen which are far beyond, somebody just causing an ashtray to fly off of a countertop and smash against the wall. There is absolute intelligence behind a lot of these things. Deviousness, nefarious intent. And so I was noticing the disconnect between parapsychology's approved explanations of this stuff and what many, many, many people actually report. And I'm not talking about stuff you see in a Ed and Lorraine Warren book or a movie, the fiction. I mean, in cases in the literature, which may be outlier cases, but I think they are just as credible as the more mundane reports of there was rapping, or the kitchen cabinet opened and closed. Yep, those things happen, but a lot weirder stuff happens too, which I think in mainstream parapsychology, most of the researchers they look away from it and do not write about it, do not investigate it, with some exceptions. Lloyd Auerbach has done some more encompassing work on some strange stuff. But again, Lloyd, who I've always considered to be a mentor of mine, Lloyd is definitely in the parapsychology camp. It's a dead person. Okay, but what the ghost is doing does not seem to be doing things that a living or a surviving consciousness, a person, without a body, things are happening that a person would not do. It's outside of any motivation. So other parapsychologists who have noted that, and I love these guys because they actually will write about outlier and strange stuff that's outside the paradigm. You had Peter McHugh. Peter McHugh has written extensively about high strangeness and outlier stuff, and he was noticing the contagion effect, I believe, before Darren, even wrote his first book on it. John and Ann Spencer, back in the 70s and 80s, had, in their books and works on poltergeist, had noted, hey, some of this stuff that's happening does not fit into the RSPK. The contagion effect in itself, where a poltergeist can jump back and forth between different people, different locations across the planet, and affect people who were never even in physical contact with a poltergeist agent or the location. They can be on a phone call or reading about a case, and stuff happens around them. And I had that happen on one case that I did do an ASAP presentation on, and we can go into that one a little bit later. D. Scott Rogo wrote on these outlier cases, which do not fit in with the paradigms. Colin Wilson, maybe John Keel and Brad Steiger, because they wrote about a lot of high strangeness stuff, but Keel and Steiger were both writers, so they wrote stuff for entertainment value. But I do believe that they, especially Keel encountered, like during his Mothman investigations in West Virginia in the 60s, encountered some extremely high strange poltergeistish activity, which is totally outside the RSPK domain. And there are others, John Alexander, Lieutenant Colonel with the Army, who was working on the Stargate programs and some of the other military parapsychology projects. He's experienced and seen things, again, that most parapsychologists would just close their eyes and cover their ears and go, no, I don't want to hear this. Some of the stuff that happens at the Skinwalker Ranch. extreme high strangeness that follows investigators home. People get physically ill over it. Again, it does not fit in with the RSPK paradigm. And again, the more I read, the more cases I've worked on, there have been so many things which this does not really fit in with what they're teaching at the Kessler Parapsychology Unit about what this stuff is and how it works. In parapsychology, there was a problem, or skeptics would report it as a problem, called the file drawer effect. So if you read parapsychology journals and read the experiments, you'd see, oh, this was a successful experiment. This telepathy experiment, seemed to show a psi effect, and there's some evidence suggestive of something going on. But you would not find journal articles which showed the tests failed. You would they would not publish stuff saying, oh, we did this experiment, for however many months with so many people, and there was no evidence of psi going on. Those didn't get published because it was negative. It didn't support what the authors, wanted to write about. They would just stick the results of those cases in the file drawer, never to see the light of day. So now in parapsychology, to fight against that claim and probably reality, they pre-register the experiments, usually with the University of Edinburgh or other universities, and say, hey, on so-and-so date, we're going to do this experiment. And then after the time has passed, they're going to be asked, okay, what were the results? We're not going to just let you ignore it in the file drawer. I think that in some cases with these high strangeness, haunting and poltergeist cases, if it comes to a parapsychologist attention, I believe it gets file drawered. And not all cases. I mean, Dr. McHugh certainly doesn't do that. But I think some stuff is just ignored because it does not fit in with the currently accepted models, which is not how science is supposed to work. If people are reporting stuff, no matter how strange it is, you investigate the reports. And if it doesn't fit in with the current models, then you have to acknowledge that and say, hey, maybe a gateway from hell is not opening up in your basement, but something is happening beyond, the subconscious anger of a teenage girl doing some of this stuff. So the more I've looked into it, the more and more I'm seeing a disconnect in some cases. I mean, these high strangeness cases are outliers. There are many, many, many more cases that, it does look like a psychological outburst through, PK, or maybe Dead Aunt Edna is, hanging out. But there are enough of these outlier cases that we can't ignore them. It is a substantial number. And even the normal cases, Dead Aunt Edna, is hanging out at your house and making herself known. Even those cases don't make sense to me. Why is Aunt Edna doing the things she's doing? And we can go into what ghosts do, which don't make any sense from the standpoint of them being a dead person coming back.
No, I agree with that. It is when you use the Aunt Edna expression to know that effectively your relative may well be coming back from the dead or the spirit world or from somewhere that she is. Well, we assume that they have gone to, or that there is a place where they can go to, and even that's a leap. While we're saying that there is a space where spirits do go, should the spirit leave the body, and then the other jump, of course, of logic is they're still hanging around your house. What are they doing? What's their purpose? Why do they want to watch over you? And I guess in history's past, we have given them agency and a reason, which is they have unfinished business. They're here to watch over us. They're there to take care of us. They might want to watch your children. They are making sure that it's on their birthday that they appear. But I think what you said there is really important. What they tend to do in your space is a bit odd. It doesn't often reflect their personality. They don't tend to not necessarily communicate, but they don't want to act like who they were. And I wonder, is it something that appears to be that person, but might be something else entirely? Is something behaving as if it is, or being is it an illusion that that is that person and they're there for something else entirely? I mean, is that perhaps where the theory needs to go next?
I think that needs to be looked at, that there's something in some cases which may be mimicking something else for whatever reason. But even in the mundane hauntings, you know, you say, okay, Edna is coming back to watch over you. Okay, maybe. And I can see that. That's a basic human motivation. And that might be why they would want, to hang around, to see their grandkids, growing up and to be there when there's a party. But if you look at the phenomenology that people report in haunting cases, and by haunting, I'm speaking primarily of apparitional surviving consciousness kinds of hauntings, not a place memory thing. But you'll have cases, a large number of audio phenomena, footsteps. The footsteps will be walking around. You'll hear footsteps on a carpeted floor where you would not hear real footsteps. You'll hear noises in a certain room. You go to that room, the noises stop, and they may start up again behind you, and you hear the footsteps behind you, or in another room. If you're an investigator and you're going up with your equipment, to try to film or audio record stuff, it acts elusively. It will move and stop while you're trying to record something, but then show up behind you. And a lot of that activity generates fear. It generates a very sense of a strong sense of being uncomfortable, especially when it seems to be actively messing with you. This is in haunting and in poltergeist cases, and there's a lot of crossover between those two. But why on earth would Aunt Edna? Why on earth would I, if I wanted to come back from the other side or never passed over, and I want to hang out at home? I would make some sort of communication attempt, generating footsteps, walking back and forth. What is the purpose of that? What is the intent behind that? I have noticed, and this is my take on it, and other researchers may think I'm totally off base, but I see a lot of the phenomena in haunting and in poltergeist cases seem to be designed to be intentionally frightful, to either get a fear response from the witness, or in some cases, and I do have a couple of cases specifically where I think this happened. The phenomena itself, whatever it is, actually generates independently a fear vibe, where it's not just you hearing the footsteps and it's strange and you get spooked by it. But there have been cases reported and cases I've experienced where you walk into a location and you're hit by an overwhelming sense of terror and fear. If that is one, that's not most likely not a place memory, but in some cases it could be, because in a place memory, it's been reported that emotions can be recorded. So not just visual and auditory recording, but sometimes feeling. If a place where a murder was committed, people will report going to that house and feeling a sense of dread, a sense of fear. So maybe in cases like that, where a family was murdered or something, maybe the fear they generated during those last moments, maybe that encodes itself into the environment somehow. The mechanism or process of that is completely unknown. It just seems to be something that happens in some cases. Other places, you go into a house and you feel this is a happy place. This is a place, where people were happy, had parties, were in love with each other. In those places, you get a light sensation. Other places, it's a very dark sensation. So something is allowing that to be encoded in the environment. But I'm talking about not subtle senses of happy or sad. I'm talking about cases where you walk into a place, you cross a threshold, and boom, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. There's something there that is radiating a sense of menace, a sense of fear. And there are a few researchers. One is Paul Eno. Paul's no longer with us, but he was a very experienced field investigator and author. He started out doing field investigations working for the Warrens. He was studying to be a priest. He went out on cases with them, including the Bridgeport, Connecticut poltergeist case, which is one of the most authenticated and most credibly witnessed poltergeist cases in history. And Paul saw stuff. He saw stuff going on, and at that time in his life, he said, "Oh, this is demonic." You know, because of his church studies and what the Warrens said. Oh, these are demons at work. He later on realized what and who the Warrens really were, and backed away from them, and has written, that they made stuff up. But he actually experienced stuff and continued in his own investigations for decades after that. And he experienced the same thing, that these locations, some of this activity seems to intentionally generate or evoke a fear reaction. And his thought was that there was some kind of energy vampire kind of effect going on, that these entities, whatever they were, fed off of people's fear, and it was in their best interest to make people scared and to continue that food source. Again, the problem is, what are the mechanics of this? Fear itself is not a energy field. It's a psychological reaction to something. But when the body does encounter extreme fear, and I've encountered this on cases, there are physiological responses. It alters body chemistry. It alters the way the brain works. Different neurons fire under a sense of fear. So who's to say maybe something is not attracted to that, or feeds off of that. And I don't want to go off into sci-fi level stuff here, but some of these cases, it looks like something's going on. Something different is going on. And Paul, he developed that belief from his investigations and his encounters with stuff. And Paul, after initially saying, "Oh, these are demons," doing this, he's changed his view on that and said, this is something interdimensional. This is something that's crossing over from somewhere else, and it's what has been identified by religion as demons or jinn, whatever your beliefs are. But he said that's what they are, but they are non-human. They're not fallen angels. They are from another reality, and they enjoy tormenting and terrorizing stuff. And you see that in a lot of these Contagion poltergeist cases, where stuff follows investigators home or impacts an investigator who's just talking about a case on the phone and never actually went to the location, never got exposed to the focus or the agent. So there's no physical contact contagion going on. This is thought contagion that's going on, and that's you're not going to show me any RSPK model which would allow for that or encompass that.
Yeah, I've felt that too, actually. Martin, obviously coming from your psychology background, what's your thought about walking into a place and sensing that feeling of fear?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, I mean, there's definitely, as Randy said, lots of different changes would take place in the body, in the brain, when we encounter a feeling like that. And one of the things I was thinking is that, it can actually change the frequency that our brains are working at. So there's the Hitchcock effect, I think it's called, isn't it? With his musical soundtrack, he used certain frequencies to bring this on, and it actually changes the frequency that our brain's working at. So, and vibration is energy, isn't it? So maybe it's being used by something else in a different way.
Well, it
can't be created or destroyed, can it? But it can be used again, maybe by an entity. Something else crossed my mind. I've been working with somebody lately who has very emotional responses to low frequency noise. And this was all sort of, I think it was a sewage pump or something was causing this low frequency noise. Nobody else can hear it in the street, but it actually makes him very depressed, and he goes into a state where he feels this real terror. And I was sort of researching this, and suddenly realized that those low frequency noises are transferred by bone. It's the bone vibrating. And if we think about it, you know, in primitive sort of terms, if we go back to when we were living in caves or jungles or whatever, you know, that vibration would probably have indicated a real danger: dinosaurs, volcanoes, earthquakes, whatever. And maybe it was just triggering a primitive response.
I think, and I mean, definitely, infrasound can cause a sensation of discomfort, of nervousness, and maybe in some cases fear. There are reports back in 1973 when the movie The Exorcist was first released. There were stories in the news that they had encoded subliminal infrasound cues in the sound effects and in the score of the movie, which were designed to instill a physiological fear reaction in people. Don't know if that was true or just marketing that the Warner Brothers put out to make people want to go see the movie and experience that. But yeah, and I think in some situations, what you're dealing with, you know, might be a geophysical, you know, natural, not supernatural response. D. Scott Rogo, in one of his books, wrote about an experience he had. He was at a university, and he was walking through one of the empty buildings at night, doing something not nefarious. He was there for a reason, but he was in the building and escorted by a security guard initially. Then the security guard left him alone, and he said he felt slowly, but a feeling of just fear and terror, like slowly started building up around him for no reason. And he said it was, you know, visceral. It was, you know, there's something terrible, horrible here with me. And he left. He bolted and got out of there. Went back, you know, the next day in daylight, and the sensation was no longer there. I don't recall the backstory about that building. I don't know if it had reports of being haunted or not. It might have been. That might have been very well why he was there. But it might have been just one of those physical locations where stuff happens. You know, geotectonic activity, which might generate an infrasound response. I've experienced that. Friend of mine, old school friend of mine, revisited our old junior high school that we hadn't been to in decades. And the high school, junior high school, had a reputation for being haunted, one particular section. And we were just driving around, just, you know, revisiting the old, you know, school grounds. And we're driving this little interior driveway that loops completely around the school building. And we were passing back where the band room was, where we both used to be in band when we were kids. And we were slowly driving, and we were just, you know, talking and reminiscing. All of a sudden, boom, I was hit by a feeling of absolute terror, panic level terror, that something horrible is here and we have to get out of here now. As that feeling started to hit me, you know, very quickly, we turned to each other and both said, "Do you feel that too?" He felt the exact same thing. So we bolted. We sped off, looped around the road, around the school, and then we came back around. We said, "Let's go do that again. Let's see what the hell that was." We pulled back up a second time, and it was still there. And it was like you cross a line. It was geologically, there's a border to it. You would cross the spot, go into that field, feel it, this overwhelming terror, and boom, we get out of it. It was maybe, I don't know how wide it was and how far it went, but it was about 10 to 15 feet deep that you drive into that field. And then after that much distance, you're out of it. We came around a third time. Now I am fully in paranormal investigator mode. Initially, I wasn't. I just wanted to go see the old school. We come around the third time, go to the same spot, nothing, gone. Now, it might have been a ghost or something supernatural. I don't know. I mean, the school had its reputation, including in that particular area where the band room was. But, it doesn't sound like something a ghost would normally do. But hey, who knows? We're talking about strange stuff that ghosts do that they shouldn't do. But I wonder if maybe there was just something about that piece of land, something quartz crystals buried in. This is the area also very near where they had the Brown Mountain Lights phenomena, where people see ghost lights around a mountain range, which I've also seen. So weird stuff happens in that part of North Carolina. And ever since then, when I go visit down there, I make it a point to go drive around that school again, just to see if I can ever experience this again. But that one day, twice, me and my friend felt that, just an overwhelming boom, not a buildup like Scott Rogo had, where it slowly built up and enveloped him in a sense of terror. This was just boom, out of the blue, exposure to that. And is that the same kind of terror that people experience in some poltergeist and haunting cases? I don't know, but I know what fear feels like because I felt it there. Also lived in a haunted house once where I encountered that twice. The sensation that something had entered my room and slowly, like Rogo's, a feeling of growing impending dread would fill up, like something was entering the room. And I had to get out. And there's a whole backstory behind that too. But I've experienced this fear. And if this is dear old dead Aunt Edna coming back, that's not something Edna would do. There's got to be some other motive, some other thing afoot. And it's something that, a lot of, parapsychology-based researchers, don't even want to address. Now, I know it happens because it's happened to me.
Incredible. I'm very tempted to talk about some of the aspects you talked about there. Do you think there's like a projected warning system about being too close to one of these things? And that effectively is almost like a distance radar. So if you have something or someone in a certain place and it kind of has a radius around it where it doesn't want you to pass into, like it doesn't want to get disturbed. Would that almost be what you would describe?
Hard to say because we're trying to assign motive to a phenomena that we can't even really properly describe the phenomena. But that's certainly a possibility. It's something, this is not where you want to be right now. Go away, and I'm going to motivate you to go away. And there are other places around the world which have reputations for that. There's even a term for it, zones of fear. And there are different locations. There's a couple of areas in Connecticut, areas out in the woods that people report. You stop hearing any sounds. All the birds and the animals, everything goes dead silent, and then this sense of overwhelming fear. And the result is whoever's there bolts and gets away from there. Is something saying go away? The Skinwalker Ranch, there are areas where people feel that, and maybe there something is saying, "Hey, go away! Don't come any closer to where you're heading." Don't know. I mean, this is we can always, brainstorm and conjecture, and that's, who knows what the mechanism is, what the intent is. And I do think there is intent in some of these cases. It's not just some things that are just physical locations, like my old school. Maybe that was just something physical with the earth or the land mass, something that Paul Devereaux would have studied with his energy dynamics and stuff. But in cases where there are other haunting or poltergeist phenomena going on, that's the fear is tied into that. So it's not, just a random natural thing. It is guided and there's intent behind it. And again, an adolescent, girl or boy who is undergoing sexual tension and family stress dynamics, who will send an outburst of energy into in RSPK. That's not going to involve intentionally trying to terrify people. Aunt Edna, who's coming back to maybe witness the grandchild's birthday party. Why is she going to create a fear response? And why do what ghosts do? Why walk around, creating footsteps, which has no practical effect on the experiencer other to unnerve them and make them feel fear? Why, keep popping up behind them when they're the witness, when the back is turned? There's something going on. There's some sort of motivation, and I can't analyze it in any other way or rationalize it in any other way, that things are happening intentionally to frighten people. Then, and why do that? Is it, is it like a psychic vampire thing where they feed off of that fear, or is just a cosmic trickster at work where something gets kicks, from making you scared and getting you scared and running out of the house? Don't know. Don't have a clue. I don't have any answers for any of this, but I have noticed the phenomena, and other people have too.
So let's go back to the cases of the strange highness that you've touched on. When you use the term non-human intelligence, what range of possibilities do you think that include?
Range of possibilities could be unlimited, and different people, different investigators do look at this phenomenology through their own lens. Some people will say, "Oh, this is aliens." Other people would say, "Well, this is some interdimensional intruder." John Keel was partial to that. Brad Steiger, Paul Eno, definitely. And even if it's a ghost, even if it's a surviving human consciousness, and they're coming back, where are they coming back from? Maybe even ghosts, surviving or returning dead people. Maybe that's also, you could classify that as interdimensional. Could be that. There's a group of people out there who follow this kind of stuff. Are going to say, well, there's a demon. It's absolutely a demon. But where do you draw the line? We're using labels for something that we do not understand. So you can pick whatever label you want. But there's something out there that's doing this stuff. And it's stuff that makes me feel uncomfortable sometimes, because something's just not right. And don't know what it is. And I'm not partial to the alien thing, but who knows? I do not know. Demonic, no, that's not my ballpark or my lens I see things through. But like Paul Eno, he used to call these things demons, then eventually said, nope, they're not religious, Christian definition of demons, or the Muslim jinn. But that's what people have called them, these interdimensional entities. And he thought they were negative, but not evil in a religious sense. They just liked messing with humanity and got kicks, and he believed they fed off of the fear response. Don't know. I am, because we don't know, I'm open to at least discussing all of these possibilities. But I think it's definitely in some cases, not all. I think some cases definitely are Aunt Edna hanging around because there's nothing to suggest otherwise. Some of this is environmental recordings, or some of it may be Earth energy dynamics at play, and it interacts with our physiology and neurology. But some of this stuff is obviously there's an intelligence and appears to be a malevolent intelligence. And that's not
Sorry,
Aunt
guys.
Edna.
Sorry. Something keeps on scratching the back of my chair and moving. I'm really freaked out. Did my magazine just move or not?
No.
Didn't notice anything.
It's just gone. Oh my God. That was so loud. Did you not hear that?
No.
I didn't hear it. No.
We
I
were
keep
talking about the
looking.
trickster watcher phenomena.
Well, yeah, this fits right into this discussion, especially with
been
the
doing it. Have you
non-contact
seen me?
contagion. We're talking about this stuff, and then
I've been looking because I keep hearing a scratching
I saw
on
you
the wood.
looking. Yeah.
Three times I've looked, and that was really loud. It was like right on the back of the chair. I'm not comfortable to sit here. Martin, swap rooms.
But Randy, when you were saying, that they wait for you to leave the room and then they're behind you, I've experienced that almost, looking in the cupboard to find the ketchup. And as soon as I had literally fixed my eyes on the bottle that I was going to pick up, and something moves on the counter behind me. And I know it was exactly as I put my eyes on that bottle.
But
Sorry,
I think
I'm really sorry.
we can all agree that this stuff does happen.
So here we are. Like Randy says, this is a perfect example. When there's almost a talking of this phenomena, it then appears to occur. And the feeling that there almost like is a sensation of, I mean, I've put it down to, I call it the anthropology of perhaps something else. They perhaps are studying, whatever they may or might be. It's like they study our reactions and act accordingly, or to make these things happen. And I often wonder, are they just like watchers?
Why? What's the purpose? And this is the thing that we keep saying, Martin and I, for those who don't know, on this new Unearthly Bureau, Martin and I live in a haunted house, and there's multi-levels of different things going on. You've got your Aunt Edna stuff, you've got other stuff. And then when I was writing the magazine article for Haunted magazine on Hauntings versus Poltergeist, I was reading out each paragraph to Martin saying, does that read okay for a lay person who wouldn't, I don't want to aim it too high, and I'm explaining stuff. And the stuff that I was talking about started happening in our house. So I was talking about mimicking a child's voice. We woke up at 5:30 in the morning, or 5 in the morning, because Martin had to go and run a marathon somewhere. 5:05, after the alarm had gone off, we both heard a child going la, la, on the corridor outside our bedroom. And I looked at Martin, he looked at me, he went up onto his elbow with his arm. I said, you did hear that? So I'm not having a hypnopompic hallucination. He said, I heard that. I said, what did you hear? And he heard the same thing. I was talking about clothing being moved. I had clothing being moved. I had dead bird fly into the window. You name stuff that I was writing about. I had it all in the space of 3 days. And I was talking to Andy Saul, one of the editors of the magazine. And he said, when I was talking about Contagion and stuff, he said, oh my God, people can't get it from reading about it, can they? Contagion. And I said, I don't know. I've never known a case that happened. Sorry to anybody that had Contagion from our magazine article. I don't believe, nobody's reported having something, but by heck, that frightened me.
Just think of all the homes across the world where people are going to be sitting watching this podcast, and are they going to experience stuff just by being exposed to our discussion?
If you do, please drop us a line on an email and let us know if you are having experiences in your home. We would be really interested to know. But you can drop us a line on Somerset Paranormal Investigators. So that's not investigations, it's investigators at outlook.com. So let me say that again. Somerset Paranormal Investigators UK at outlook.com. So you can find us. I'll put a link when this goes out in the details where you can get hold of us if you are having experiences. It would be really interesting to note that, wouldn't it?
We can generate a bit of a research piece there, quite simply. Is the cases, for the people who write for various magazines, have you experienced something while you were writing your magazine? And then see what the response is.
Parapsychologist D. Scott Rogo, who experienced that field of fear in the university, he wrote an article back in the 1980s or early 90s in Fate magazine, where he was discussing strange stuff outside the paradigm. And he reported that whenever he was working on a book, he wrote books on apparitions, poltergeists, pet telepathy, a whole range of parapsychology issues. And he said when he was writing or doing research on one of those subjects, then stuff would happen around him tied in with that. If he was researching PK, objects would move. His car keys would be missing. He'd find them in his refrigerator where he did not put them. Little poltergeist things. If he was writing about things involving telepathy, he would pick up on a sensation from a friend and then call his friend and say, "Hey, I just had this feeling that you were something bad was happening." And go, "Yeah, I was just in a car accident." So he noted that it was him doing the research, him thinking about a subject would cause that stuff to happen about him. So I reached out. That fascinated me. So I actually did put out feelers into the community saying, "Hey, has this ever happened to anybody else?" John Kruth, who runs the Rhine Research Center, which is the current incarnation of the old Uke Parapsychology Lab, John said, "Yep, I've heard that. I've heard that from parapsychologists." And I'm sure it happens a lot more than we hear about because those folks don't like to talk about it. Why do they want to talk about it? Because it's an outlier and it does not fit in with the neat models and hypotheses for parapsychology. But it was interesting that this guy who runs the premier parapsychology institution in the world, it was, "Oh, yep, I've heard of that. That happens." Has not happened to me yet. And part of me says, "Oh, I wish it would. I really want to, experience this stuff." Then the other part of me goes, "Well, I don't want to be like Caroline and have something scratching the back of my chair while I'm sitting here talking." So I'm kind of torn.
When you write, Randy, do you ever run it by M and read it to her and say, "Does this
No.
sound right?" So you're vocalizing it.
No, I don't discuss any of this stuff with her. And if I tried, she would just leave the house. And
instead of the chase.
Is that because it's not her field of interest?
No, she's terrified. Terrified. It's all nonsense. She doesn't believe in any of this. This is all just horror movie stuff. But I can't discuss it with her because she's terrified. I thought it was a foul poltergeist from beyond the other side, but it was just M running the vacuum cleaner and having a phone conversation while I'm in the middle of an interview.
Okay. No, don't worry.
Oh,
That's fine.
That's mundane strangeness, that is.
But it's okay. I have my my friendly beverage.
Wonderful.
I mean,
so heading back, have we got any cases then, Randy, that you can think of, something that you dealt with, maybe not always within your police role, but in your paranormal world, with the connections that you've got? Have you got an example you'd like to share with us that you've experienced this high strangeness?
Well, not so much cases, but I've had stuff happen at home and surrounding me. One interesting thing, this is a number of years ago, I was hired by a law firm that was their client was trying to get out of a house purchase deal because they claimed the house was haunted. And the lawyer was trying to void the contract because the sellers did not disclose the house was haunted. And different states in the U.S. have different laws. New York State, you have to disclose if your house has, if anybody's ever reported as being haunted, you have to disclose that. New Jersey, where I am, does not have that law. So they're trying to actually create a precedent in this. So I was hired to testify to the reality that, yes, I can't say this, that their house is haunted or not, but here's the history and the literature. Here are scientists, who say, yes, this stuff does happen, is real. The other side hired James Randi, the skeptic and magician. And so I was kind of nervous. I was going to wind up in court facing off against James Randi versus Randi. So I never met the home buyers. I just dealt with the lawyers. So I was at the lawyer's office, and they're talking. They said, Randy, tell us about some of the stuff that happens in haunted houses. So I was going through the phenomenology. And I said, one thing that happens, and I've experienced, is that you'll have electrical disturbances, and the lights will go off and on, the lights will dim. At the moment I said that, the lights in the lawyer's office dimmed down slowly, went black, and then slowly came back up. So we all just looked at each other with that. Okay, coincidence? Okay, could be. Yeah, coincidences happen. But we were discussing that specific phenomena that happens at haunted locations. And as I was saying that happened. My suspicion, and I'm not going to bet my life on it, my suspicion was that was not a coincidence. That something somewhere was aware we were having that discussion, and said, well, this is a good time to actually show them what he's talking about. Another situation, this was Paterson, New Jersey. I was living in a house that was supposedly haunted. House was built in the 1920s, and people had seen the ghost of a lady or apparition of a lady walking around. Non-interactive, non-responsive, from people to see a lady just, crossing a doorway threshold, and you'd yell out and there's no response. So it sounds like a place memory kind of thing. Well, my roommate was a detective with the sheriff's department. I was a federal police officer at the time. We both had an apartment in the basement. His mother lived upstairs. People had seen this lady in the basement a lot. I never did. Other people definitely saw her. We'd have cops over. That was our hangout. You go there any time of day or night. There's 10 cops hanging out, having a beer, just relaxing. And all the visitors had seen this lady. I never did. I felt bad. I'm laying in my bed one evening reading. I'm reading a book. Probably a book about paranormal phenomena. The light was on. I'm completely awake. I start hearing tapping sounds in the wall behind my head. Tap, tap, tap. Okay. Temperature changes cause building structures to contract and expand. You can hear little noises. But I was feeling uncomfortable. This little tapping right behind my head while I'm reading a book about poltergeists. I was a little bit unnerved. So I moved. I changed my position on the bed so my head was up against a different wall. The sound moved. It followed me, and it started right behind where my head was now. Tap, 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 tap. As this was going on, I'm starting to, okay, this is kind of weird, but I was kind of thrilled too, because this is the kind of shit that I live for. All of a sudden, I felt something enter the room. I didn't see anything. There was nothing to see, But in that one corner of my little small bedroom, in a specific corner down to the right, I felt there was something there, and this sense of radiating fear started coming from that particular corner. There was something there, and it was scary as heck. And the sensation just got worse and worse and worse. And I'm sitting there. Okay, I didn't even want to look in that corner because I did not want whatever it was to know that I was aware it was there, which is kind of stupid because it knew I was there. But I'm sitting there. Oh Lord! I mean, just a terror. But and it's bright light. The lights on. I am not asleep. Never fell. This is not hypnagogic or hypopompic overlaying dream imagery. I'm never fell asleep. And just a feeling of absolute terror. So I'm sitting there trying to lay and not look in that direction. The next thing I know, it's the next morning. I had just passed out, which is very unusual. Being interested in this kind of stuff, I would not want to fall asleep, and being, terrified, you think that would keep. I just passed out, woke up the next morning, and everything was fine. It happened again a couple of weeks later. This time, lights were out. I was asleep, so we can't rule out the overlaying dream imagery situation. But I woke up from a dead sleep. Boom! Woke up and pitch black. Couldn't see anything, but that same corner of the room, something was there, and this was instantaneous. It was not the slow build up. Boom! Something's there. It's horrifying. So I'm sitting there. I'm saying a silent prayer. I'm saying, God, get me through this, make this thing leave, and I'll be a good boy, and I won't drink my adult beverages as much anymore. So I'm sitting there, and again, I don't want to look in that corner because I don't want it to see me looking at it. But the thing was pitch black. But I did. I looked in that corner, and again, the room was pitch black. Lights were out. There was no light coming in from outside through a window or anything. It was pitch black. But in that corner, I perceived a roughly humanoid-shaped figure, or at least an ovalish figure that was darker than the completely dark room was, like a negative, not just dark, but like something, maybe a black hole that sucked in light, because I could see that corner was darker than the totally dark room. That terrified me. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I am awake. And I am awake. This is, so that freaked me out. And again, the next thing I know, it's the next morning. I'm waking up and everything's fine and the birds are chirping. Again, just fell right asleep in the middle of that, which boggles my mind how I fell asleep in the middle of that. Another day, same location. My girlfriend at the time was spending the night with me. We're in that room. I couldn't sleep, so I got up, left the bedroom, went to the living room where I'm sitting on the couch reading. I hear her calling, Randy, Randy. And I responded from the living room, I'm out here on the couch. Blood-curdling scream. She came bolting out of the bedroom, totally panicking, crying. What's going on? She says, I was in the room. In the far right corner, I saw a black figure, this walking back and forth, pacing. And I figured, it's you. Why are you walking around pacing? And then when I responded from outside that room, so it obviously wasn't me, and she realized that was something else, she total panic mode. She would never come back to the house. She would never come back to see me there. I had to, from that point on, always had to go visit her. Another time, that same location, I'm laying in bed. I had called out sick from work with a migraine headache. So I'm laying in bed. My roommate, Nick, and his partner, Denny, from the sheriff's office, they were working. They were out on narcotics field work, but they stopped by the house to get something or to do something. And as far as they knew, I was away at work. But they heard something in my bedroom, and then they said they saw my door to the bedroom did not go all the way to the floor, so there was a gap, and you could see light through that gap. And they said they saw somebody walking back and forth. They would see the shadow of footsteps just pacing back and forth in front of that door. So they think, okay, Randy's at work. Somebody's broken into the house, and there had been break-ins in the neighborhood. My car got broken into about a month before that. So two detectives sitting there, somebody's in their house, guns come out or pointing, at my door, and and then they start lightly jiggling the doorknob. And so I hear that. I've woken up now because I see them pacing back and forth outside my bedroom. I'm totally silent because I think somebody's broken into the house and they're getting ready to come through my bedroom door. Reach to my bedside. My gun comes out. I'm pointing it at the door from my side, and I'm hearing them murmuring because they're talking to each other, trying to see what's going on. So I'm sitting there and I feel, okay, I can sit here and wait for whoever it is to come through the door, or I can take the initiative. So I got up and I was getting ready to kick the door open and engage, whatever was there. So I did. I kicked the door open, broke the wood around the door frame, and my gun's pointing at them. Their guns are pointing at me. Then, thank God, instant recognition of each other. It was us. And a ghost or something almost caused a shootout in my house. But then they told me they saw, they're saying, why were you walking back and forth, past the door? I said, I was in bed. I was asleep. I was not in front of the door. So this is all the same house. Eventually we both moved away. His mother still lived there for a while. But that was not Dead End Edna. I don't, even though people saw the ghost of a woman, apparition of a woman who would be walking back and forth, this does not seem to play into that scenario at all. This was something that I experienced, that my girlfriend experienced, whatever Nick and Denny saw walking back and forth in my room. And remember, my girlfriend saw something pacing in the room too. So that's something different. And again, that feeling of terror that I experienced was something different. That's not a residual haunting. That is not RSPK. That is not Dead End Edna or the spirit of whatever lady people were seeing. That was something malevolent. And again, if I wrote up that experience in the Journal of the SPR or the Journal of Parapsychology, I don't think it would get published because it does not fit in with the accepted science behind all this. But I might be wrong. They might get published.
Why do you think that academia has a resistance to talk about the stuff that doesn't fit the criteria?
Well, you got to understand, most of academia as a whole thinks that hauntings, apparitions, and RSPK are absolute BS. Okay? The people in parapsychology are a very small subset of science, and they will look at and study this stuff, but only to the extent of their comfort zone and the lens that they view these things from. And that lens is currently, okay, most parapsychologists do not believe in ghosts. Most parapsychologists, they say, yeah, people do experience stuff, they see stuff, they hear stuff, but there's no surviving human consciousness involved. It's all environmental recording. It's all a place memory. There are a handful who do or are open to the surviving human consciousness, life after death thing, but it's a small minority of parapsychology. And when you look at science as a whole, it's a very, very small minority. So they have their comfort zone. It's an environmental recording, or it's RSPK generated by a living person. But and at least they look at it. At least they have a lens they filter this through, but at least they're looking at it. But a lot of the reports out there and experiences out there do not fit in with those self-limiting boxes that they put this stuff in. And kudos to John Fraser and his one big paranormal box theory. But yeah, I don't know. But what I do know is that this stuff does happen. People have the experiences. I've had the experiences. People around me have shared these experiences. And I don't know what it is, but it's not a place memory. It's not RSPK. And I'm pretty sure it's not Aunt Edna. And if it is Aunt Edna, whoa, yeah, she's gone rogue in her afterlife years.
With it being Aunt Edna, I mean, there's this weird perception that they have to be themselves or it's their personality and that's what we recognize. But like you said there, the behaviors, the observations and the actions of those people don't mirror the personality that they once had. And we almost ascribe it to them because we want it to fit in with our recently deceased relative, or we have our medium come in who says, "Hey," or it's probably going to be your grandfather kind of thing. I mean, what do you think about that? Do these, I hate to use the word spirit because I'm not using that word particularly, but do they have to have a personality? Because it appears to be they're kind of following almost a pattern rather than a personality.
In many reports of hauntings, the ghost or apparition or sensed presence does seem to fit in with familiar patterns. Like I said, these high strangeness cases that we're talking about are outliers. There's a lot of recorded cases and experiences in the literature where people did sense and get a feeling. This is Uncle Bill who's come back. Uncle Bill would always smoke a particular kind of pipe tobacco, and people will smell that that pipe tobacco. Uncle Bill always liked a particular type of whiskey, and the people will come home and find that bottle of whiskey has been moved, or the cabinet drawer has been opened. Can a ghost open, physically manipulate something like that? In some cases, that's reported. I don't know. And there's nothing scary going on. People aren't getting waking up in panic attacks because there's some dark figure radiating evil energy. Some of these cases there is some sort of surviving personality. When we talk about surviving human consciousness, we're talking about human consciousness. What makes me, you. While we're living, and seemingly in some cases that continues after bodily death. Lloyd Auerbach works a lot with mediums, and he's identified certain mediums. Pamela Heath have worked with mediums. Gary Schwartz, the University of Arizona, has worked extensively testing mediums, and they all believe they get evidential responses and the mediums say, yes, here's the ghost. It's this person, and they're worried about their grandkid, or they're upset about this. They don't want you remodeling the house, and they're giving information which is so specific. Julie Beischel at the Windbridge Institute, they investigate and test mediums, and they've all identified various mediums that they were convinced are actually obtaining information through means which there's no normal way to obtain that information. And they say, yep, it's a surviving dead person. They still have their feelings. They still have their same motivations. If they were naughty in life, they're still naughty after death, because it's the same consciousness, the same personality. And I've reviewed these mediumship studies. I concur that there is information, confirmed information being obtained that the medium, there's no way on earth they could have known that information. But is it evidence of survival after death? I don't know, because what they are getting is information. They're obtaining information through apparently psychic means. Well, that's the definition of clairvoyance, having knowledge of events or information without using the physical senses to obtain that knowledge. Okay, so I think that's evidence of psi at work. But I think it's a bit of a jump to say that's evidence of a surviving human consciousness after death. But the mediums believe it is. They say it is, and they're getting correct information. So I don't know. So some of these hauntings, ghost entities, whatever you want to call them, yeah, I think it is Uncle Bill and making some sort of communication, or at least somebody being able to connect on some holographic universe, Akashic record level to obtain information that dead person imprinted into the universe, and you can tune into that and get stuff, or it might actually be the surviving. Again, I don't use the word spirit either, but consciousness, personality. Some of those cases are suggestive of that, but that does not account for the blacker than black figures pacing in the corner, and it radiates a palpable sensation of terror and fear, either in my bedroom or crossing behind the band room at my old junior high school. Something else is at play. And people talk about, you're looking for is what William James is looking for, the white crow. If you prove that one crow is white, they're not all black, then you've proven that not all crows are black, and therefore you've proven that the psychical phenomena is real for that one case. So I accept that, yes, there are white crows out there which prove that this stuff is real, but I'm fascinated by the polka dotted and zebra striped crows, which are something different. They're even weirder than the white crows. And I think those psychedelic tie-dyed crows are out there.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I have a question for you. It's a different question that was set at the time because we've got a different guest after Marcus Louth. What he has said was, and it's kind of ironic because he's absolutely interested and focused on the crossover between the phenomena in 14 activities and reported details that come in. So he said, with this connecting details between ghosts, poltergeist phenomena, etc., and other areas of the paranormal, such as UFOs and cryptids, what do you think, in your thoughts, the possibility of the mechanism, whatever that mechanism might be, allowing this phenomena to manifest and interact with us? What do you think that mechanism is?
I don't have a clue. And nobody has a clue. I do think there is a lot of crossover, especially parapsychology as a discipline puts hauntings and apparitions into its own box, and then poltergeist into a separate box. And I think more and more studies and accounts are showing there's a lot of crossover. Again, John Fraser thinks they're the same thing. Other researchers agree that it may be it's all poltergeist activity, and the haunting apparitional experiences that you have are just a subset from the overlying poltergeist activity. I do think there are some differences in most of these cases because you have, and I do believe in RSPK. We've established that in parapsychology. They've identified the psychological dynamics and the neurological dynamics which these poltergeist agents, the adolescents and teenagers, do have, and if it's a stress-based or psychology-based issue. When these people are given counseling, when they're given therapy to address their underlying stress, universally, the poltergeist activity stops. So there is a definite connection there with the psychology of a living person. Bill Roll identified certain neurological things that you have a pseudo-epilepsy platform where electrical activity in the brain indicates that you're having epileptic seizures, but there's no seizure. There's no physical outburst, of a seizure, but your brain is still doing that. And it seems like just by observation that you are having that outburst, but it's being done psychokinetically. And instead of you picking, instead of your body shaking and knocking something over, you are somehow reaching out to that cup on the shelf and making it fly across the room. So there is a connection. I'm not saying that, RSPK and the parapsychology models are nonsense. They're not. We've established that there is a factor, but I think that in some cases there is something else. I don't know the mechanism. There is crossover. Some people think that in cryptozoology, those creatures are paranormal rather than actual lake monsters or Sasquatch running around. I don't know. My suspicion is that if there is a creature in Loch Ness, if there's one in Lake Champlain in the U.S., and I think there might be of some sort. I don't think it's some a parapsychological projection or interdimensional entity. If there is something running around the Oregon woods in the U.S. that people call Bigfoot, and I'm very skeptical of that personally. I'm more open to maybe the Yeti and in the Himalayas, but running around near Oregon, I don't know. I think that a skeleton would have been found by now. Bigfoot's going to fall off of a cliff and the bodies will get washed down the river. We find human bodies all over the place. You find skeletal remains, people drown, the body washes up. You're telling me that it doesn't happen to Bigfoot? And then there are other folks who say, oh, it's because Bigfoot is a paranormal manifestation and it's interdimensional. Well, you can't say that it is or it's not. I don't know. I hope Nessie isn't a spiritual thing. I want Nessie to be a prehistoric plesiosaur. That's just the romantic side of this in my mind. UFOs and alien encounters. I don't know if I am convinced. I'm probably not convinced that people are seeing aliens flying physical spaceships across galaxies because there are certain physics issues with that. But maybe it is some sort of interdimensional transit where it's not, you having to go across vast distances that would take you a million years. Maybe it's boom, boom, instantaneous across dimensional thresholds. But that's total speculation. That's total brainstorming. Who knows? But if some of these weird high strangeness encounters that people have with the alien abduction scenarios and the UFO close encounters, a lot of that phenomenology is identical to poltergeist phenomenology. And in fact, people who have these close encounters very often, after it's over, after they had their encounter on the highway late at night, when they get back home, for the next couple of months, they experience poltergeist activity at their house. Classic. Poltergeist activity. So, what the hell is going on there? You're talking about cross phenomena contagion in that case. So where do you draw the line? Aliens, interdimensional, Bigfoot, poltergeist, maybe some interplay between some elements of this, but the mechanism, don't get me going there. I don't have enough adult beverage in my cup to even get me started thinking about that.
We're very lucky because of having to change the schedule around. We've actually got a second question for you.
We do. This
from
is
a previous guest.
Yeah, previous guest. I had a question.
Well, I got anything more than 2 questions, I charge extra for. So
you can have double your rate if you answer this one.
Okay.
So right here on my desktop. Let's just zoom up.
Yes, go on then, Lisa. Okay, so do you think that your work life has aided or abetted your paranormal investigation journey?
Nice, sweet and simple there.
And the answer is it has helped. Initially, when I first started doing field investigations, I was able to get access to places as a cop that otherwise I wouldn't be able to get access to, including government offices, locations which are off limits to the general public, especially when you're talking about, hey, I'm here looking for a reported ghost. I was able to get access to prisons, police stations, where people had reported experiences. That the only way I got into those locations was I was part of the club and had access. The chief of police of Newark, New Jersey Police Department came and grabbed me one day and said, "Hey, I want to take you out to this cemetery in the very dangerous part of Newark," because his patrol officers had multiple experiences in this cemetery, which just in general, I doubt most cemeteries are haunted. If I'm a ghost and I'm going to come back and hang around and do something, I'm going to hang around at home or hang around at my favorite pub. And I'm not going to go to a cemetery, which I had no connection with. That's just where they put my body. But some people report stuff at cemeteries, and his officers had multiple encounters, seen the dark shadows and figures walking around. Now, this is Newark, New Jersey, is a high crime area. You got lots of drug addicts hanging out in cemeteries at night. But they said, no, that's not it. We know the difference between a ephemeral black shadow rising up behind a tombstone and a drug addict, because they deal with drug addicts every day. So we're walking around, he's showing me the stuff and just asked, my opinions. I said, well, and I told him about, yeah, we really don't think ghosts are going to haunt a cemetery, but I can't doubt his officers' eyewitness stuff. So the only reason I got access to that, and this has never been written about. You're not going to find a book on New Jersey ghosts and read about this cemetery, because these were police experiences that were never publicly reported. And the only way I heard about them and got taken there by the chief of police is because I was part of the club with another department. As a cop, I was trained in interviewing techniques. I was trained in deception detection. There are different techniques, which I'm not going to go into in a public platform, but there are different tells that you can look for that people are being dishonest. And that translated directly from police work to paranormal field investigations. I have a very good built-in bullshit detector. Again, the access, the report writing, when I would first start writing, my investigation reports, I followed the same method that I used for police reports. I was able to get to, there's a haunted prison in Hudson County, New Jersey, where people reported in one of the cells that somebody who had died in that cell had been haunting it for years. And the corrections officers had it reported the stuff, and other prisoners were terrified of that area near that cell. Eventually, the county moved their jail, and they started demolishing that building. So after it was in the demolishing stages, I was brought there by county officers, and we toured the building. I got to see the cell. Again, if I was just John Q. Public off the street, that never would have happened. So yeah, it's been useful for me having my day job, and it's never been an issue. Everybody I've worked with is aware of my involvement and it. They've seen me on TV. A lot of the cases I've worked, I've brought cops from where I worked, and in other departments, I'd bring a multi-agency task force of cops. Randy, bring us out to a haunted investigation. So it was never like an issue. I currently, and I have for quite a while now, worked for the federal government for one of those three-letter acronym agencies, and I've always suspected that it's safe for me to be a ghost investigator. However, if my passion was UFOs, I think that might been more of an issue. But I'm a ghost guy, not a UFO guy. So, yep, it's been nothing but helpful.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I kind of have to reiterate that as well. Being an ex-cop, the skills are transferable that you have. The same BS meter, I think, sits within all of us, doesn't it? Where you have telltale bodily giveaways that you go, yeah, I'm not kind of believing this. So yeah, you do. The report writing and the interviewing skills has come in incredibly useful. We don't get access to places, though. That's the difference. So we just have to ask nicely to the people who own it. And whether or not they agree, is nothing to do with being an ex-cop or a cop. So, yeah, I see
And
where
back
you're
in the
coming
day,
from.
I had access to department-owned equipment, thermal imagers, parabolic microphones, night vision and stuff that I would not steal, I would borrow. But I would say, hey, Chief, I'm going out on this ghost investigation. Can I bring the thermal imager? And yeah, go ahead. Just if you break it, you've bought it.
Works. That's great. Military grade stuff. Yeah. What better? Marta, anything to throw into the mix?
No, I think it's been really interesting tonight, though. My mind is throbbing with ideas.
Give me the Wi-Fi box next to you.
Sorry?
Give me the Wi-Fi box next to you.
Oh, it could be, yeah. Yeah. It could be that. Or maybe it's
Working on the wrong frequency.
Who is our guest next week?
Let me just double check. Next week we've got Marcus Louth. So he should have been on prior to you, which is why we got a question. We've asked him for a question in anticipation, but you have him to ask a question to. So he has a podcast. Remind me, Christian, describe the podcast to Randy and who he does the podcast with.
Well, the podcast is called The Crossover Project. Well, that's kind of his main theme, and he presents that with Steve Merra. So that you can kind of get a good vibe of what he talks about on that particular show. But no, what is it actually called? What's it? The Anomaly Project, I think, is the full title of it. The Anomaly Project. Yeah, Steve Merra and obviously Marcus do that show together, where they clearly are exploring high strangeness and all its different facets that it has. They generally have an hour conversation with a person, and they kind of dive into the topic and kind of stick and play around with that a bit with some, all the different rabbit holes they could potentially go down. So what would you like to ask Marcus, considering he also has an interest in the multiplicity of the different kinds of phenomena potentially crossing over with each other?
My question for him would be, just like you guys asked me, when did he first start becoming aware that there was crossover, that these different phenomena cannot be put neatly into their own isolated box? Was it a gradual realization as he investigated cases and reviewed the literature, or did something happen? Did he have one particular experience or case where boom, wow, there's something else going on here that's not what we've always been told in this field? Okay,
excellent. Sure, he will go with the flow on that one and see where he ends up then. So yeah, I guess the best thing to do for us is to draw our show to a close then today. Then, so Randy, an incredible thank you very much for you spending some time with us, and we greatly appreciate your expertise and your insight. But it's actually wonderful to share. We have such a connection with all the different elements of parapsychology, with wonder, with curiosity, but also keeping that rational mindset in there to go, wait a minute, this might be bullshit what I'm being told. Wish to end our show with?
I can't use the other one because I think that's copyrighted against Seriously Strange. But yeah, so thank you all. Martin, have you got an out?
No.
Whiskey. That's the out.
Whiskey, yes.
So Randy, on behalf of everybody here at the Unearthly Bureau, thank you for participating and enlightening people to the subject. And thank you for coming along on the ride with us, discussing all high strangeness and the rabbit holes that it took us in. Thank you again.
My pleasure, and I appreciate being invited to join.